Hey, greetings everybody. It is GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft coming at you. I mean, man, it's been a little while since we've done these. So, bear with me a little bit if my skills for transferring these have gotten a bit rusty. That's the downside. These are books that I actually have hard copies of, so I have to upload them myself each time from photos, and it's definitely not always perfect. These will be much more bite-sized episodes. Like I said previously, we're going to finish off Chronicles 1 here and read about 2/3 of Chronicles 2 before we start our next book. We'll read all the Rise of the Horde, and then it looks as though there's one other book, The Last Guardian, that's going to be like concurrent with Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans, so we'll kind of play that one by ear. I'm thinking that I might kind of switch back and forth, and we'll just kind of read that as we go through Orcs and Humans. Okay, so this is where we left off. This is 600 years after the events of the trilogy that we just finished, and this is talking about the Sentinels. So they didn't exist yet in that War of the Ancients trilogy. 9,400 years before the Dark Portal, which is Orcs and Humans. That's when the game series begins. All right, so let's just kind of read forward a little bit. As the centuries passed, the burgeoning Night Elf society expanded into the dense forests of Ashenvale, south of Mount Hyjal. And when we had left off, they were really congregated at Mount Hyjal. Tyrande Whisperwind, high priestess of the Sisterhood of Elune, led the Night Elves in rebuilding their society. Okay, so it's not Malfurion that leads them, or Jared or anyone else. It is Tyrande that ends up leading them. She was already high priestess. That part had happened already. Her order was uniquely positioned to fill the power vacuum among the Night Elves, for it had emerged from the War of the Ancients relatively unscathed. Okay, that's true. All of the Highborn and the Moon Guard and Black Record, they're all decimated. Tyrande deftly positioned the Sisterhood as the leaders of both the Night Elf government and the military. She also forged a new fighting force, the Sentinels, composed of devout and highly trained warrior women. This order dedicated itself to protecting the emergent Night Elf society. The Sentinels set out to patrol their misty forest home, befriending the native creatures of the land and standing guard against any threat. Okay, so this seems, in a way that's cool, they're most like hunters. So, because look, they befriend the creatures of the lands. Meanwhile, Malfurion continued fostering a culture of druidism among his people. Having abandoned arcane magic, many former sorcerers embraced Malfurion's teachings and devoted themselves to living in harmony with nature. So we also see the rise of druidism. These early druids lacked the stringent militaristic codes and hierarchy of the Sentinels. Malfurion's followers were free to explore the depths of the Emerald Dream at will. Again, we also read how he was blessed by Ysera to have him and his followers always be welcome to explore the Emerald Dream. They also experimented with the art of shape-shifting, taking on the forms of mighty bears, lithe night sabers, swift-winged crows, and many other animals that roamed the woodland deeps, which are their main forms, as you know. Bear form for tanks, cat form for melee DPS, travel form for flight, and they also have stag form, and anybody that plays around with druids, we have moonkin for balance form, and stags, kind of like a sea lion seal. Yeah, I guess it's more like, I don't know, like a four-legged swimming travel form. Treants, there's a treant form you can easily get, plus an assortment of others you can get through special glyphs, I think, through inscription. I've only played around with that a little bit. So sure, there's other transformations as well. I know there's like a star form you can get with classic glyph, classic inscription, but that's a little bit behind. Inscription's a job I haven't delved into as much as some of the others. Okay, the Druids regularly entered long periods of hibernation as they journeyed through the dream. This aloofness frustrated Tyrande and her Sentinels. Though they often sought the Druids' help to safeguard Night Elf lands, few of Malfurion's followers were ever awake to answer the call. Okay, so that's a potential rift between the two of them. She is annoyed. She wants to put her people first, and they're just living in the Emerald Dream. As these changes in Night Elf society took shape, an old foe was gathering strength in Kalimdor. Following the War of the Ancients, the remaining satyrs stayed hidden in the dark corners of the world, waiting to strike back at the Night Elves. Eventually, one of the horned aberrations, Zalan the Feared, gave his brethren this chance. He rallied the satyrs and girded them for war. Okay, so the satyrs were left behind. They didn't get sucked up into the well. Zalan's rise also drew the attention of the Burning Legion remnants trapped on Azeroth after the Sundering. Okay, so there were some trapped. Doomguard and other wicked beings emerged from dark warrens drawn to the Satyr's call. As one, this demonic army launched its first brutal assault on the Night Elf stronghold of Nightrun, plunging the fragile society into war once again. So I'm guessing, because they just mentioned it, that Nightrun is in Ashenvale, which is one of the Kalimdor zones. Interesting about Ashenvale is, because Mount Hydro gets sealed off there, and I guess they'll explain that later. But until Cataclysm, it was inaccessible. And another thing is that Ashenvale is adjacent, one to the Fellwood, which is like a Burning Legion wood, but also to Darkshore, which is itself just a hop, skip, and a jump away from one of the places where they have the other tree. Okay, and we have a little sidebar about Shandris Feathermoon, who was a little baby girl in our book who had fallen for Jared Shadowsong. It seems like it was mutual, or was going to become that when it was more age appropriate, and she was already showing hints of, hints of being like a warrior type or a hunter type. The Sentinels included a number of Night Elves who had fought bravely during the War of the Ancients. Chief among them was Shandris Feathermoon. Orphaned during the Legion's invasion, she was taken under Tyrande's care. Young Shandris distinguished herself in combat time and again throughout the conflict. I mean, kind of. She's a kid, though. Her heroics earned her a place at Tyrande's side thereafter, and when the Sentinels were forged, Shandris was named captain of the fledgling order. Makes sense. She's a cool character too, and still to this day in Shadowlands, she's side by side with Tyrande. Okay, so the Night Elf Empire is spreading a little bit. We're setting up for what I think the next chapter is going to be, which is the War of the Satyr. And I think I got to say one thing: all this work we put in with the War of the Ancients trilogy, we are keyed in hardcore on everything they're talking about here. So I think we're gonna feel some ripples of that effect for the next few episodes. Okay, thanks guys as listening. I really appreciate you. As always, another episode in the pipe. 5x5. Catch you on the next episode of Lore of Warcraft.